Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Vince Rocco here in New York at the Real Deal New York City Real Estate Forum. We're live today. We're going to do a couple of shows. For the first one, we're going to talk about private networks. For years, private network listings in real estate were treated like a niche strategy. Now, they are the center of one of the biggest controversies in our city, in our industry of real estate. Supporters say they offer privacy control, targeted exposure, especially in markets like we have here in New York. But critics say that they reduce transparency, limit buyer access, and may leave sellers with less competition. I absolutely agree with that. So we're going to have a conversation today with my three guests about what exactly private networks are. I'm here with Jared Antin, Teresa Alessandro, and Joan Kagan, and we're going to have a conversation about private networks. So Jared, I want to start with you. First question is, what exactly qualifies a private network listing today? You hear so much buzz about all of it, but what actually qualifies a listing to be private?
Yeah, and thank you, Vince, for having us here. I don't know that there's actually one specific definition, but I think the most commonly accepted definition would be a listing that is not on the MLS, but is widely, available for sale and may be listed behind a password in one sort of place. And there's a wide array of sort of different private networks that exist, whether they're within different trade organizations or a specific brokerage or different brokerages and things like that. So,
Joan, you work for a firm that kind of promotes private listings. So in your opinion, are they truly benefiting sellers, or are they really benefiting agents or brokerages in general?
I think they do benefit sellers. We have conversations with our sellers, but if we're leveraging Compass Private Exclusive, which is our private network, it's not the best scenario for every single seller. If we're doing it, we have a conversation with them about it beforehand. The intention is that we're using Private Exclusive. It's a stage in marketing, and the goal is for it to be on the market eventually. So it's not staying in the Private Exclusive phase forever. So we'll use it when we talk to sellers about it. They have to sign a letter to the RLS stating that they understand that they're not getting the most buyers or most views or most visits or offers to their listing. And we have to be very clear about that. The intention is to put it on the market. We're doing research during that phase, and it could be while they're staging, while they're decluttering. If it's August and it's a terrible time to list a property, then we're going to wait until September. But during that time, we have it in private exclusive so that we're able to share it with other Compass agents and other agents from other brokerages who may also have buyers who are going to be appropriate for it. So that way we're able to get data points so that we're able to share are we priced right? When we go on the market, are we going on at a lower price?
Teresa, what is your opinion on this? Are they really benefiting us as agents, brokerages in general, or sellers?
Well, I think when you look at the concept of a private exclusive or a private listing, it's really self-serving for that brokerage that is creating that internal closed network to try to procure the buyer and the seller so that they can make both sides of the transaction and ultimately make a larger profit from selling that one property to two agents under their umbrella. Now, I do agree that sometimes you have to test the price, and there's been other methods to do that, maybe a broker's pricing party, maybe utilizing your own network or your CRM to invite specific professionals in your industry to come and see the property, or even, a psychologist to declutter or an organization person to declutter. So all of that is great to help the seller test and understand value before debuting the listing live. But I am a little cautious when it comes to double dipping both sides of the transaction, because I think there's an underlying profit to be earned, and it's not creating a fair market for all brokerages. Even though they can probably find the listing now that we have this new method called participant only within the RLS. But it's important that whoever is under this licensed professional network as an agent should have access to the listing so that it's not closed-knit into one brokerage alone.
Jared, your thought on that before we move on? Because I think my opinion is I don't think it works, but that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at BHS because I would agree with that stance. But I would say the biggest thing is this is a broker or brokerage or agent-led sort of push, meaning this is not a problem to my understanding that consumers are saying, hey, I want to be able to get less exposure for my property, so I want to keep it off market, right? At times, there are certain sellers that for privacy reasons do want to be able to facilitate a sale without putting it on the market, and every brokerage, BHS included, has ways to do that if that's what the seller wants to do. But according to a recent survey on sellers that T360 did, the number one reason that sellers are saying that they chose to go an off-market or a private listing route is because the agent recommended it, which again proves from that survey that this is an agent push, not a industry responding to a consumer demand.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I don't particularly agree with it, because agent push, brokerage push, whatever it is, you're not maximizing. And my next question is, in a low inventory market as we have here in New York City today, you need to get the listing out there. You need to understand who else is out there. Is it hurting competition for the sellers? I mean, who knows that the listing is out there?
Well, I think with anything, if the seller's goal, and this is true for most sellers, not all, but most, they want to sell it as quickly as possible with the least friction for the highest price.
Right.
So common sense says that you need to get it as far, as wide, as quick, as fast as possible, and have the property look really, really good to make sure you get maximum exposure and maximum interest. If you gate that delays the process and thereby makes the process take a bit longer and potentially leave some money on the table.
Joan, how does private listing impact pricing accuracy and transparency? Because a lot of people, when I've mentioned this to sellers and said, not that I believe in it as I've said, but they say, well, maybe I'll get more money if we go out there and do it off market. And I always tell them, no, you're not going to get more money. There's no competition. Who are you going to be competing against?
So I'm going to tell you, the first question is, just in terms of pricing strategy and how it benefits pricing, is most sellers want to sell at a higher price, and they're going to have a slightly higher price than we're recommending. I find this is often the case where we're doing an estate sale and there are multiple decision makers. There's going to be disagreements about how we should go about pricing it. Are we pricing it lower to sell quickly? Are we pricing it higher to see if we can get it? But if we're testing the price beforehand in private exclusive, we have a web page for that listing, so we can track data to that web page. We can track how many buyers have visited the page, how many times they viewed the listing, have they and their agent been discussing it, and have they requested a showing. And then once we have people in the apartment, we can ask them, these are people who are out there, active buyers who are out there looking for something similar. What do you think about the price? And with that, I don't think of this as just within Compass. Obviously, Compass agents have access to the listing. I think that any agent can set up a search for private exclusive so they see what's coming on the market as well. Separately, I reach out to the other agents. And my goal is to get the best job done for my client, for my seller, so that involves other agents. So if there's another agent who had another apartment in the same building that was similar, of course I'm reaching out to them to, one, talk about pricing, but also to say, hey, you must have buyers. So do you have buyers who would want to come see this listing? So I think that there's definitely cooperation within there. There was another question you just asked, which I didn't quite answer yet.
Accuracy.
So I think
that transparency.
That helps us come in with the accuracy and transparency, is that we're having more information to help us price something accurately. We know if we're pricing it high, and this has happened in private exclusive, and we're getting silence, we're getting no inquiries, we know that's probably the price, or something else is terrible about the apartment. So we can test a slightly lower price so that when we do go on the market, it's priced right and priced to sell quickly.
Okay, we have to take a quick break. A word from our sponsors. We will be coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Teresa, where is the line between client privacy and withholding inventory from a broader market? Is there a fine line there?
I mean, look, I was at a brokerage that promoted private exclusives, and I think one of the sales pitches was, yes, we test the price, We give you a little bit of a runway to prepare the home, and we keep your privacy and days on market to a minimum. So it's pitched as an advantage to a seller. I think sellers who need that type of shield and privacy have numerous ways to doing that before withholding the inventory, withholding their sale. They could put the house in an LLC or a separate entity. They can, if they don't want their neighbors to know the house is on the market, they can, do pricing parties or have private showings so that they don't have an influx of people coming in and out of the building on an open house time. I think if you're in the realm of real estate and you have a property, there is no privacy. People could check your voter registration records. They could check your tax bill. It's kind of like a false feeling of privacy because your property is private when you close the door and you're behind locked doors. But people can know what you own, and there's not really this need to be very cryptic. If you have a property that needs to sell, you need to put it on the public market. I also think it's a real test in like agents' networks. Like I think if you have a good CRM or if you can match one pair of buyers with a pair of sellers, like that's your skill set as an agent, is trying to match people to a property. You don't have to do that completely off market. I think it's still done well when it's public.
I agree.
What was the second part of
Jared,
that?
let's talk about fairness, okay? So can private networks create a fair housing concern over time? We're very concerned in our industry about fair housing and privacy and a whole bunch of things. Can this affect that at all?
Absolutely, and there's been a couple studies that have come out from some of the public advocacy groups saying that it could exacerbate some of the fair housing issues, in part because it gates access of who can get in. You need, there's different levels in how you get access to that inventory, and when it's gated and when everyone can't just go to one place and see it all, it can create inefficiencies and certainly create biases, embedded in the process.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you're holding something back, right? I struggle with kind of understanding how it makes sense. I have a seller, a $2 or $3 million listing, but I'm not putting it out there. I'm keeping it, behind closed doors, so to speak. And I'm telling my friends in the brokerage community that I have this listing. I don't get it.
I mean, yeah, curtain
I don't
up.
get it.
You should just show it. Yeah, you should.
I'm not going to show it. How am I going to show it? And the flip side of that is, if you all have your own private listings or off-market listings, how do I know what you have? So if I have a client who's looking for something specific, what am I going to call around every agent that I know in the city? Hey, by the way, do you have something that's off-market? I don't have time for that.
It's going backwards in your efficient work.
It doesn't make any sense. Joan, are buyers increasingly at a disadvantage if they are not connected to the right brokerage or network? In other words, buyers out there search on their own too, right? If they don't see a listing that they may be interested in, they're at a disadvantage, no?
So buyers get to choose the agent that they work with, and obviously it's less about what brokerage they're with the agent is with, but really who they relate to the best and who's going to create an opportunity for them. In a low inventory market, any good agent is going to create inventory for their buyer. So where inventory is really low, it's 9% below where it was last year and it's a decrease year over year since 2022 and mortgage rates went up. So inventory is low. So what are agents doing? They're looking at what is not on the market in general. We had two big rentals that we rented around this time last year on the Upper West Side. We've had 8 agents reach out to us. They are not on the market. We've had 8 agents reach out to us to see if they're available either for rent or for sale, and one of them has an accepted offer now to sell. So I think that those are good agents who are looking for opportunities for their clients. In 2022, when mortgage rates went up and inventory dropped, we had all these buyers who were motivated, qualified, and really needed to find a home to live in too. So we would look at what had been taken off the market in the past year, because remember, for sellers, it wasn't a great time for them to be selling also. They may have still wanted to sell, but they weren't getting their price. Buyers weren't buying because the rates were high. So we would go back and reach out to the brokers who had listings that were off market and say, I see this isn't on the market anymore. I have a buyer who might be interested. Can we arrange a showing? And able to create opportunities that way.
Jared, how is technology accelerating the growth of off-market and private inventory channels? technology, as we know, is affecting everything, and has in a positive way. Does it have any effect on private listings, for example?
Well, I think technology in and of itself over the last 20 to 30 years broke down what was, in essence, all private listings back in the day, right? When every brokerage had their own black binders. So I think we're actually going backwards in many of the cases where, imagine if you were trying to book an airline ticket, right? I just flew back from an event in Colorado yesterday, and if I had to go look at 5 different airlines, well, instead of just looking at one place, that would be inefficient. So to the same thing, that's what's happening to a buyer today, is they can't just go look at an aggregator or one place. They would need to go site by site, sign up, register. So I think, sure, technology has made it easier to be able to create a network, create another site, yes, but I also think then we're undermining the progress that has been done over the last 30 years in this industry in terms of creating transparency, clear price discovery, and stuff like that. I don't know that technology is the reason this is coming up, because, again, we did this in a low-tech method. I think we're actually using some technology to go backwards.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Teresa, does the rise in private listings weaken the long-term role of the MLS? Because we all know that when you're searching, you're using the MLS or other means of search engines. If you're doing private listings, you're kind of like weakening the long-standing way that we as agents look for property for our customers.
Okay, so this is really interesting because I'm licensed and I work in Westchester County and I work in New York City. And the biggest pain point for me in New York City is we're kind of dismantled. We don't have the camaraderie of like an MLS or a trade association like in a different area. So here in New York City, a lot of sellers don't know what's happening behind the scenes. The RLS doesn't create like a uniform listing service for us. There's Street Easy, there's for-profit websites that have our listings, then our individual brokerages have our listings. So we're in a really competitive playing field where there is no uniformity in how we advertise properties. And I think because of this inflection point, there's brokerages that are creating these private listing services because we don't have standards to make them display everything. So I think we have to look at it from kind of like a uniform standard. Maybe REBNY can get involved or some type of MLS in New York City can be created, non-for-profit, so that we all play by the same rules. And until that happens, I think a lot of brokerages and a lot of agents are going to be left to their own devices to either create opportunities, as Joan was saying, and network and try to promote off listings, off-market listings, on-market listings in the best way possible to try to match these pairs, buyers and sellers. So we're in a really difficult market in New York City overall.
Jared, something comes to mind that I wanted to ask you about. With the National Association of Realtors settlement last year, it's really changed the rules for us here in New York City with regard to buyer and agent and relationship and commission and signing an agreement, whatever. One of the reasons that they lost that lawsuit in the Midwest was because of lack of transparency. So I kind of think all of this private network stuff is just hypocritical.
Yes.
It's not transparent.
Correct.
So how can we allow that to happen when we need to, based on what a lawsuit told us we have to do, be more transparent to our clients out there? I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't get it.
Yeah, I can't square that with the commission suits and the mergers and the consolidation, but there's a different administration, right? So part of that has changed too, but there are bills working through several states, New York included, to be able to sort of restrict the use of these networks or to require really affirmative disclosure and seller sign-off that they're understanding the potential risks or drawbacks of engaging in this type of strategy. So again, I think everything comes down to transparency. And as I say a lot of times as a result of those commission suits, they didn't allow or not allow something that already wasn't allowed or not allowed. But what they did is they made it a lot more they required us to be able to be more active with disclosure, ensure that we're entering into agreements that made it very clear the economics and the relationship and the agency disclosure. So transparency and trust and credibility is really at the center of everything that we need to do as a profession and as an industry.
100%. And Joan, based on what Jared just said, what should sellers be asking their agents when we propose, going off market or making a listing private? I mean, listen, we all know that sellers really don't want to pay commissions. And so do they think that if I only go private or off market, I only then have to pay you 3% or whatever the number is? So what are we telling, or how are we strategizing our methodology with our sellers?
First, we're completely transparent with our sellers so that they understand the process. We say, we're probably not getting, it's unlikely that we're going to get the buyer during the private exclusive period, but it is going to get us information. So particularly when we have a list, and these are conversations that happen, whether you call it pre-market, off-market, private listing, whatever it is, these are conversations that agents are having all the time anyway. If I sit down with, like right before I show a listing and I'm talking to the other agent, or on Mondays I call other agents after our open houses to get feedback. I can't tell you how often, and I do the same. What else? The two questions you asked: how are you finding the market, and what else are you working on? What's in your pipeline? That was 3 questions. But in terms of, and buyers and agents will say, you know, I have this buyer on the Upper West Side, can't find, they want a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, need move-in condition. I can't find what they're looking for. Do you have anything that you can think of? So, and sometimes I might have something in my pipeline, but that's really disorganized. I think you said that before. It's hard to make the match that way. But if we can search for what it is we're looking, and there are other websites and chat groups and things like that where people are posting off-market listings. I can't say what other people are doing. I know that if I have something in private exclusive, I have a conversation with them, and they have to sign this letter to the RLS that they understand they're not getting, that this is not the best way to get the highest price and to sell the most quickly. So we're transparent about that. What should the seller be asking me? I'll tell you the things that they ask, and I feel like hopefully I'm answering a lot of their questions before they have a chance to, but they should be asking, how long are we going to be in private exclusive? When are we going to go on the market? Am I still showing? Do I still need to be show ready during that time period? And what happens if I do get an offer? What are we going to do if I get an offer during that time period?
All right, we have to take another quick break. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere. Our last block is right after these messages. We'll be right back.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Teresa, I want to ask you the same question. What should sellers be asking? I mean, Joan gave us a great answer. What should sellers be asking us about the benefits of going private or going off market? And how would you address that if you were in that position?
Yeah, I think the main question is why? Why would it benefit? Why am I going off market? And sometimes if the property was, I dealt with the property that it was a low floor, it had kids in it, slime on the wall, stickers on the fridge, crazy. And I was like, you need a lot of time to get this ready because it looks right now like you need birth control, and we want it to look like it needs to be sexy. So we tried to judge it up a little bit. And I said to them, I was like, okay, so this whole concept of going off market, as Joan was saying, it gives you a little bit of time to get the space ready. But they should also know, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get the best price for it. It's just a test. It's a test of my network. It's a test of how the property is going to respond in the market. And ultimately, Joan was mentioning, they should know what's the debut plan, because it doesn't always end in private exclusive. And I would actually advise them, don't take the first offer you receive as a private exclusive because you don't have the full picture of what it's going to actually sell for. Keep that offer in the background until you go live. So yeah, I think you hit it. Those 3 questions, when is it going to go live is the number one question.
But is it really a situation where eventually it's going to go live, or is that just kind of a talking point? Because I would assume that the whole thought behind private listing is to keep it off market and keep it private.
So I think...
Because, hold on, because if you're going to go live, go live.
Yeah, just wait and go live.
So I'm going to give you examples from other industries. So restaurants, when they open, they do a soft launch where they have fewer customers in the restaurant at a time, and they're getting feedback, and maybe their soft launch is mostly people in the restaurant industry who are able to give them more feedback before it goes on the market. If my son's in the film industry, he does, before a film comes out, they screen to a separate audience in different parts of the country to get feedback on, do you like that ending? What would you like to see different? Did you connect to that character? And then they make changes before it goes into theaters everywhere. If you're doing a Broadway show, you're going to do dress rehearsals, and then you're going to be in previews for a period of time, and you may make changes during that time. So I think there's that feedback. So certainly we make changes on pricing. We may also, there are hard conversations we have to have with sellers before they go on the market, like you have to zhuzh up your apartment, you have to clean up. Maybe you've got really colorful paints that's not going to meet most people's taste. Like, you got to paint it white before it goes on the market. It's easier to say that if you have feedback from other buyers who've been in there to say it.
So I appreciate the point of comparison, but I think it's important to make the distinction that in consuming food at a restaurant or enjoying a Broadway show, that's a one-to-many, right? Meaning many people can enjoy that experience over a period of time. When it comes to real estate, it's a matter of finding the one buyer that's going to be the right buyer for that property. So, what we're doing at BHS is we're doing that work ahead of time. We're getting in, as Teresa mentioned, the pricing party. We're having, our top agents come to the door and submit feedback so that we can make sure that no buyers experience a property for anything but its best, meaning we'll put it on the market when it's ready to go and let everyone compete at the same time, because our job as professionals is to not limit exposure, but to maximize exposure, but to deliver the maximum results.
Which leads me to my next question to you in our final moments. I'm busier the last couple of weeks than I have been in a very long time. I mean, out of my mind, out of control, busy. And one of the problems I'm having I've got several buyers, is finding inventory to show. And you and I have talked about this on the show many times. Our biggest problem these days is inventory, not price per square foot, not this, not that, not interest rate, inventory. So when I'm home or I'm in the office and I'm scrambling to find things to show my clients, and they may be out there in a private or off-market listing, that does me no good. So I see that my buyers are going to be at a disadvantage, right? Based on everything we've all talked about here. In your opinion, again, in our closing moments, how do we get off this topic and get back to normal?
Well, I think you're going to need to have some government regulation to move the needle. Otherwise, we're going to keep...
Is that possible?
I mean, like I said earlier, there are some, bills moving through some different, states to try to do it. In a potential new federal administration, maybe there's some action there. But you're also seeing this fight now between Compass and Zillow and their pre-marketing stuff like that. So again, I think the important thing is for the consumers to be fully educated and for brokerages to make sure that they maintain their North Star as being what's truly right for the client, what's truly right for the seller based upon their goals, based upon the timeline of the market, and understanding how do we truly do that. So by pushing what's best for the client, not a certain other narrative, I think is where us as an industry needs to stay grounded in that we're here to serve the consumers and the people, not our own narrative.
I agree, and well said. And again, I'm not trying to be negative here. I just like to be transparent. Even before all this transparency stuff, became what it's become lately, I've always been transparent. I've always been upfront, honest with my buyers and with my sellers. And I'm trying to wrap my head around, the lack of inventory or trying to figure out where there may be something to show my customer. And I'm certainly, and I'm going to go right on record saying, I'm not ever going to discuss with my sellers, which I have a lot of, go off market. Why? It makes no sense. So that's me waxing poetic. Sorry if it's controversial. But final thoughts?
No, I think we all kind of touched this at different angles. I like what you said, Joan. Like sometimes brokers have to pick up the phone, call your colleagues, different agencies, different.
I don't have time to do that.
Because the industry isn't giving us an MLS, so we still have to go through other websites to try to scrap together the overall inventory. But if we had like a uniform MLS here, we just click online. But I think we still have to call our colleagues and see if there's anything in the pipeline, because that's what we're dealing with in Manhattan. It's very dismantled here. It's not uniform.
And I mean, I get a lot of emails. I know a lot of people in the industry. I've been around for a long time. And I get a lot of emails every day, which I'm sure most of you do. ISO, in search of.
Yeah.
Is it because they can't find what they're looking for and they're hoping that someone has a private listing or an off-market listing? A lot of noise here, sorry. We just cannot work that way. Anyway, that's our show. We'll be back later this afternoon to talk about artificial intelligence. We are live here at the New York City Real Estate Forum. Thanks so much.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place. The More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting GetMoreNetwork.com.